When you think about honeybees, what comes to mind? Is it the sting from a bee that stung you when you were a kid? Or is it the taste of a spoonful of honey that you just got from a local beekeeper? Or maybe you see that without bees, we would have no food to fill our plate, as 1 in every 3 bites is pollinated by a bee. For as far back as history can date, humans have lived with bees. In fact, we have become 100% reliant on bees for our food. And this was never a problem because bees have thrived for many, many years. But lately, okay, so not only do we have deadouts sitting over there, something has changed. And now today, beekeepers are seeing the greatest loss in honeybee colonies in history, not even counting the great loss in wild pollinators that many studies are now finding today. So Casey and I decided to hop on a plane and make the trek out to California, where the greatest pollination event in the world is currently happening. The United States makes up 80% of the entire world's almond production, which requires around 2 million beehives in order to pollinate those almonds. Right now, we're calling this ground zero because a significant portion of California's almond acreage will face underpollination due to this huge shortage of bees. But this is just the beginning of the circle, because after this, beekeepers move their hives to the rest of the country in order to pollinate all of our other fruits and vegetables. So if the bees come out of almonds not looking so hot, the question is, what's going to happen to the countless other crops that are reliant on our pollinators? But there's even more to this problem.
With any business, you've got to make a good profit, or you just will go get a job at McDonald's or something like that. So beekeeping it's on the verge of not being profitable if it hadn't already arrived at that.
So all this foreign honey was willing, able, and ready to supply them, and they realized we don't need U.S. honey.
Yeah.
And so we're actually at break even or going behind.
Do you think there's any way we can fix the mess that beekeeping is in now? Any ideas of how? Possibly. That's a hard question.
Yeah.
Beekeepers are not going to be able to
They're
to afford to stay in business.
and it doesn't look bright for the bee industry as.
Okay, so sun is coming up. We got some mountains back there, and we're completely surrounded by almond fields. You can smell the pollen in the air, and oh my gosh, it smells so good. We're definitely going to be sad when we have to go back. Oh, he's right there. He's coming. All right, we got a lot in store for the day. We're meeting the grand old Randy Oliver today. Pretty excited about that. So Randy is a commercial beekeeper who has ran a successful migratory beekeeping operation for the last 45 years. So if you don't know what that means, pretty much beekeepers move their bees from state to state so that they're able to pollinate the various crops that we eat and enjoy today. The problem with that is migratory beekeepers see a lot of different stressors in the environment from moving bees, whether that be from pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, or any of the other viruses or mites that do parasitize our bees. But this is the cool thing about Randy. He has truly made himself a thought leader in the science side of beekeeping. He started beekeeping in 1966, but shortly after went to university so that he could get his degree in biological sciences with a specialty in entomology. He runs a website called The Science of Beekeeping that he talks about all of the different research studies that he does on bees and the different stressors that affect them. So he's a pretty cool guy. So we are out in California at one of the almond groves where Randy has some of his beehives at. I have never seen almond trees before. So did you want to tell us a little bit about how... So I see some bees pollinating. How do they
Bees flying around. So here's the deal with almonds. You plant that most of the cultivars are not self-fertile. They need to have pollen from one cultivar transferred to the flowers of another cultivar. So typically they plant 3 different cultivars in separate rows. So row right here of one. The second one might be the main crop, nonpareil. So you have an early blooming first, like an A plus or something like that, that will overlap with nonpareil. And then you have a late bloomer on the other side. So if there's bad weather during the first overlap, you hopefully get good weather during the second overlap. So they hire bees to consummate the sect act for the almond trees right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's what we go over to a flower right here. And you can see we're getting near petal fall down here. So many of these flowers are bloomed out here. There's not much pollen here. A little bit on here. If I can rub my finger here, I can get some, not much left on that one. Oh, where's the tree? Do you see what one just got? See, these are most, this is already afternoon. By 11 in the morning in a well-pollinated orchard, there's no more pollen left in the blossoms. And many times the bees just stop flying altogether. They just looks like the boxes are dead. Yeah. That's funny. We were at a tree a minute ago and there was, wouldn't you know it, that other tree had a ton of pollen. These flowers have all been already pollinated and the pollen stripped off of them. Yeah, let's walk over here and see if we can, which tree were we at? This one?
I think it was that first one. Yeah, right there. I think it was, yeah.
Come on, we saw tons of pollen on some blossoms.
Here's one, right here. Or no?
That's still a little bit. But we saw some really yellow ones. This is pretty much.
This one?
Oh, come on. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be difficult after that. Normally, they're all the same. Here we go. Okay, so look right up here at this blossom here. You can see all this bright yellow pollen right there on those anthers right there. And this is just not even starting to dehisce yet. So this one's still, flower is ready to release that. If it's ready to be pollinated, it would all come off and cover my finger yellow. These other ones you can see have already been pollinated. So this is getting near to be the end of the bloom. And then after the bloom of pollen, the trees will start putting out nectar. So here's a bee going for nectar right now. This bee is not going for pollen. So see, there's no pollen on its legs. Okay, it's diving straight in for the nectar. When they're going for pollen, they're going over the anthers and collecting the pollen on their legs. If you were here 2 hours ago, the bees would have been collecting pollen. Now there's still a few. Let's go walk over to the hive. You can see some of the, probably a little bit of pollen foragers left. Again, by this time of day, a lot of times, see, there's very little flight here now.
Yeah.
Earlier in the day, it would be incredible. If you look right down here, get your shadow off of there. Okay, and get over to this side so you're not blocking the entrance. Okay, and you can see what we're disrupting the entrance right now. But there's a load of pollen coming in right there. There's one flying out with some pollen. That's
confused.
You didn't quite understand the rules here. So again, most in the morning, every single bee coming back. We have pollen loads, but this is later in the day. So Eric, come on over here. Tell us about this. It's my son Eric.
Yep.
Let me get my smoker going again here.
And you had mentioned too, the reason that we don't need to wear veils today is because all these flowers are mostly producing pollen and not nectar.
Right. Well, once they start producing nectar, the bees get a little bit touchy. But right now they should be just fine here. Wipe off that. Okay. So Eric, why don't you describe this particular drop? Describe what issues we had starting late in September. What did you start noticing?
We saw a lot of hives dwindling more than normal, larger attrition rate to older bees especially. Queen's still laying well, healthy brood, but just not large enough clusters to rebound from it.
Yes.
And
so where we live in the Sierra foothills, it's very dry during the summer. So there's almost no natural pollen nectar coming in after August. So September and October, we normally always supplementally feed with pollen sub and perhaps syrup to bring in that protein so they will brood up and go into winter into a large cluster. So we were doing our normal, what we've done for many years, is feeding the pollen sub. And
just
what
not seeing the response to the pollen sub that we would normally see, where you can keep hives growing past the honey flow and pollen flows. You can normally keep building hives through August, September, October, where this year we just saw them either stay stagnant or dwindle away.
Were they still eating the pollen sub?
Hit and miss. The worst hives were not consuming the sub, and we were removing it and replacing it anyway. Other hives were consuming it, but still just not responding to it.
Yeah, normally we see them increase the amount of jelly production, rearing lots of larvae. The brood nests expand, and those it takes 3 weeks for a brood cycle, and we'd see the colonies growing. In this case, the older bees were dying off faster than they were recruiting. We want it to be just the other way. We want recruitment to exceed the attrition. So your bees naturally will dwindle away. A bee lives typically about 35 days during the summer. About 12 days of flight, their wing muscles wear out and they fly off and die. That's normal, okay? But normally they replace themselves before they age out. Well, we saw that you didn't see that replacement. So even though the brood looked healthy, we didn't see the bees living long enough to for the colonies to build up. They just dwindled away. They dwindled down from strong colonies right before our eyes down to 2-frame colonies. We then went into the winter, and there was a very brief, maybe a month break between feedings?
Yeah, we usually let them shut down through the end of November and December before ramping them back up through natural forage. We get an alder bloom in January, so they start naturally foraging. We also put the pollen substitute on at the same time, depending on weather.
Yeah, and we got a very nice, we were lucky this year. First week of January, we have a native tree, the alder tree, that makes a very attractive pollen, very nutritious pollen for the honeybees. They normally build up if the weather cooperates. And this year, the weather cooperated, and they got a lot of alder pollen in. And normally, they would just explode on that alder pollen.
Well, some of the hives did. And, we saw hives that were dwindling turn around and start rebounding once they were getting that forage in, better nutrition, but not all of them. And so this drop in particular was one of those drops after we had some pretty big losses this year, a lot of culling out, a lot of combining, a lot of boosting hives. But these were hives that we felt in, the end of December, early January, that they were going to be strong enough to make almond grade. So they were moved to this location. After that fact of getting them here, we realized that they were still dwindling away. And so we were already contracted for the hives, so rather than culling these out or combining them down, we brought down outside resources, a few frames of brood, pound of shook bees, whatever we felt the hives needed. Put a little pollen subs and syrup on them, and waited for the bloom to come. And so far, we can get into them now and check them out, but it looks like they're rebounding, especially through the almond bloom, and they're starting to brood up. They're on their probably 3rd cycle of brood rearing. The jelly's been looking good, pollen storage is looking good, and it looks like the hives are turning around, rebounding.
So this is good news for us because we're kind of a control group. Our bees are in a pesticide-free area up in the foothills, so pesticides were not an issue for us. We had varroa very well under control, so varroa or the varroa-associated viruses will not be an issue. I went out and done extensive sampling for nosema. Nosema has not been an issue. We don't use synthetic miticides, so clone contamination is not an issue. So we can rule out, and lack of offered nutrition in the form of pollen sub at least was not an issue. We see with the pollen coming in, with the alder pollen, they did respond some. So the question was, our fear was they were going to continue to go downhill in the almonds. That would have been absolutely disastrous. We had a cull. We only took 2/3 of what we expected to into almonds, what we expected. If they continue to go downhill now, and that's what we're going to see in a minute, that would be a disaster. It means there's something happening. It's likely a pathogen, likely some new virus or something that's happening here. So let's crack some open now. They've been on almond pollen now for a couple of weeks. So let's open one up and take a look and see what happened. Try this one here. Sure.
So it's not the biggest hive.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Why don't you take the lid off? Let's go. There should be brood in that top box, Eric.
All right, let me get in the bottom.
And we're seeing right here is some oxalic acid and glycerin sponges.
Oh, I love those.
Okay. From I have pesticide research authorization in the state of California to use these.
Now, my question, were those in while you're seeing the colonies kind of start to dwindle?
Most of the colonies had them, but not all of them.
Okay. Okay.
So if you look at this high larval survival right here, see how solid this brood pattern is right here? That means we didn't have any kind of brood disease here. We have this kind of the bullseye pattern of expanding out. Let's take a look at their side there, Eric. And again, you can see the bullseye rings right here. And I'm going to tip this myself towards the light so I can see. Oh, God. Get over to this side. Okay. Now, if you look in here, you can see right here, the jelly around the young larvae. Not an exceptional amount of jelly. A lot of times, generally in almonds, we have more jelly than that around the young larvae. I'm a little bit surprised by not quite as much jelly as I would like. It's not bad, but again, we're not seeing any sign of any diseased larvae, no sign of brood disease. So it's not European foul brood, it's not American foul brood, it's not chalk brood, and they seem to be brooding up nicely. The question now is, how many bees we're going to have emerging. And normally by this time of year, we'd have, these will all be like 16, 18 combs covered with bees by this time of year.
And you said these
So you can
hives
see they're storing plenty of pollen here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And over here, you can see the bee bread here. So this is almond bee bread right here. So that's a surplus of more than they, can you see it right in here?
Oh, we got to turn away from the light.
Okay.
There we go. That's perfect right there.
Okay. So that's surplus. So the bees will continue to use this to build up after the bloom is over, because we're getting near the end of bloom in this orchard right here.
So I know all we can do is speculate, but do you have an idea what you think could have maybe caused it?
So here's what I want. You see this nice solid brood pattern. This is the first one that's really got a nice. The other brood patterns were recovery patterns.
Yeah.
Okay. This now is established, nice solid brood pattern. This is what I want to see at this time of year in these colonies. So I'm seeing, what you got to realize, it's a 3-to-1 expansion. One adult bee spans over 3 cells of pupae. So when you have a full comb of sealed brood, when those bees emerge, you got 3 combs covered with adult bees emerging.
Yep.
Okay. So even though some there'll be attrition in some of the older bees, you have a very rapid expansion. So what we want to see is just seeing this number of combs of brood. Now, also, some of those brood patterns were because we boosted these with some other failing colonies. So we get a mixture of brood cells in a lot of these. So they're just starting to see lots of bee bread here. They're expanding out here. So things are looking good as far as this colony looks like it is recovering. That's the main thing. Is beekeeping, like all of agriculture, is very much dependent upon weather, other issues, and plagues. We get plagues every decade or so of something, which we may or may not ever get explained to us what it was, but we'll see something. But now the bees recover and they rebound, and beekeepers recover and rebound. And this is a really good for us to see a rebounding colony right here. So it makes me feel good that we're going to be able to, the colony is not going to die. And second, we're going to be able to, our operation, although it's financially, it's going to be very stressful this year. Looks like we'll be able to recover here. Go ahead, Eric, and close that one back up there.
Why would you grade this box at this point?
Let's see, we got, let's say 4 down there. It's like an 8 framer.
Let's just look in the upper box here and see.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's about where I had it.
Yeah.
So most of the brood is in the lower brood chamber here.
So they actually are bringing.
Yes.
There's your queen.
There's the queen. Oh, everybody wants to see the queen. Yep. And let's see here. I'm going to taste some of this.
Is that almond?
Tell me if there's tasting any bitterness.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So almond is not normally sold. The bees normally eat it up. But I can see more jelly here around the larvae. That's what I want. Look at how solid this brood pattern is. That means no sign of any kind of larval disease here.
Yeah.
So this one's doing fine. If we were to go down below, so I'm going to put this comb back in. I do not want to crush this. Yeah, where did she go here?
Right there.
Yep.
Okay, let's go ahead, Queenie. Let's get you over here, get you safe here. So I'm going to put her safely right here. I don't want to accidentally roll her as I put this back in. So this one's looking, again, nice recovering colony. And let's go over here, try another one. That gives me some room to work right here. Other very nice recovering colony, lots of jelly around the brood, good larval survival, surplus of bee bread. So once these trees are finished blooming, these bees will be able to continue to build up on that. Look at the jelly. Can you catch the jelly? All the milky jelly in there. You got the light right.
So these will look really nice after a couple brood cycles.
Oh yeah, another brood cycle. These colonies are going to be bouncing back. So this is just.
They're definitely behind where they would be.
Oh, way behind.
Normally at this stage of bloom, we'd be seeing 16, 18 frames of bees.
Really?
Yeah.
Where these are, maybe 8 or 10 frames of bees.
Yep.
We'll look at some of those later that are normal for this time of year.
Okay.
Yeah, very small. And so here's for my breeding program. So these are failed breeders.
Okay.
Where the mite count went up. I think we have any breeders left down here? Eric still in the count?
Probably.
Here, why don't you?
We can go to the other side of the orchard. There's some better looking hives.
I was just curious to let's go down and see if there's a breeder here that we can take a look at.
Yeah. So just so I understand you correctly, the symptoms you saw is you saw a decreasing adult population. Did you also see the decreasing brood population?
Well, with the decreasing adult population, you're always going to see decreasing brood because they can't cover very much.
Yep. Okay.
So you have to keep it warm. Beautiful jelly in here. So there, again, this one's looking like it's going to recover nicely. I don't know if we have brood here. Again, we're just looking at the upper box now.
Yeah.
The lower box. And look, just solid. So see how all the larvae are exactly the same age? That tells you have very high larval survival. So if this was a pathogen involved, it was not a brood pathogen. It would have been an adult pathogen. So there are viruses and nosema, which causes the adults to start foraging prematurely. Yeah. And then if they forage prematurely, once the bee starts foraging, it's 8 to 12 days, and it wears its wing out, it's gone. Within that time, it has to be replacement. So that initiation of early foraging or the self-sacrifice by the bees because they feel sick, that's what causes that disappearing of the adult bees. That makes sense. Adult bees rarely die within the hive. They use their last energy to fly out and remove themselves from the hive. Otherwise, their sisters have to take their bodies out. So evolutionarily, honeybees don't die as adults inside the hive. So what you see is just a dwindling of the colony, shrinking down despite rearing brood. But that means it's not a brood disease. It's something that's affecting the adult bees and causing them to either self-sacrifice or simply age out more quickly, start foraging earlier on. Let's see if we can find a breeder down here.
I think we're going to have to jam to the other side.
Okay. Yep, we'll go over the other side. These are all potential breeders that got rejected. You can see where their final mite count. So in June, count of 1. In August, a count of 0, looking good. But then in the middle of September, they went up to a count of 8. So that's with no mite treatments at all. So at this point,
no mite treatments. Wow.
Yeah. Well, wait till you see a breeder. So this one would get treated at that time. So X'd out means they got treated.
Okay.
Again, see the progression here. They looked initially promising, and then the mite count went up, and boom.
And that's when you treated.
That's when we treat. So
okay.
So at that point, anybody who's over a mite count of 1 or 2 in fall would go ahead and be treated. We don't want to lose any colonies in our breeding program.
Yeah.
So what it is, we track them and see the ones that we'll look at some better counts on their side.
Okay. I like how you do that. That card system is handy.
Yeah, we're switching over to aluminum now. We just made aluminum plates.
It's relieving to hear that at least any of the hives that did get hit with whatever is making them collapse, at least they are starting to recover if they made it that far. So over the next couple days, I have a few more people that I will be chatting with, some really, really important people, and I can't wait to share these conversations with you.
We're struggling as an industry, and we're not, as Einstein said, we can't solve the problems that were created with today's thinking. We have to think differently, and we're not there yet right now.
This year is going to be a pretty hard year for beekeepers, especially because, like I mentioned, this all works as a circle. So if the bees come out of almonds not looking too great, then they're going to keep getting beat up as they go throughout the year, because some of the other crops that they will be getting put on are pretty hard on them. So my ask from you over the next couple months is going to be absolutely crucial that we come together as a whole and try to start working towards change. Now, there's a lot of problems in the beekeeping industry, but if we come together and figure out what the ask needs to be to help beekeeping, I think we could potentially have some better years.
I think there's hope for the bees until the very last bee dies.
So with that, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Oh, and don't forget, honey is just a product until you meet the beekeeper behind it. Don't quit and be fit. See ya!